I would describe Merton as being close-knit, supportive, as well as diverse.
I would say Merton is beautiful, is wholesome, and it's home.
So I think Merton College is friendly, inclusive, and unique.
I think the words to describe the community would be get stuck in, which is a bit weird because they're not adjectives, but I think that's the vibe.
In 3 words, I would say Merton is curious, encouraging, and homely.
Summing up Merton 3 words, I would say friendly, beautiful, and ambitious.
Merton has a wide range of support from financial to welfare as well. They do a lot of grants, so they do a travel bursary where you can go abroad in summer if you're doing something that would be relevant to your course. They also have a book grant, so if you struggle with money but need to buy books for your course, it's really good. You get up to £100. And then there's just all sorts of welfare support as well. So they have things like graduate mentors and book angels, which we had during coronavirus as well.
It's worth saying that the students support each other as well, which is quite important. One of the things about Merton is that it doesn't teach every subject, but it's quite a small college, but that means that we have significant sized groups of students in the subjects that we do teach. And they are from all over the world, and they've all been from different schools, and they're all interested in different things, but actually they find they've got a lot in common and a lot they want to talk to each other about. And we often think they teach each other a lot more when they're talking to each other at lunchtime about what they've just been reading than we teach them when we're talking to them in tutorials about what they've spent the week reading. And I think from the smiles on the students' faces, you can tell that's probably true.
So a tutorial is where a tutor gets together with 1, 2, 3 students and spends an hour discussing an academic area. It's a fantastic opportunity for the students to get really individual attention, and that can either be discussing things that they find particularly interesting, it can be discussing things that they want to extend their knowledge of a little further, or it can be discussing things that they find particularly challenging. It's a great way to get individual attention. It's a great opportunity to ask all of one's questions and to really get deep into a subject.
They're really useful experiences that you get to spend an hour or even more sometimes with a tutor who knows that subject really well. You go through the problem sheets that you've done in the week previous, getting to cover things that maybe you have struggled with, and even things that you haven't. It's just kind of nice to know that you have got them right. And then, you get to, if you've completed the problem sheet, you can do some more general questions on your topic. So in maths, like we might have studied a specific thing, but we take it to a bit more general level. And sometimes the tutor will kind of foreshadow what's going to come in the following week's lectures. So you have a bit of kind of a knowledge of what to expect later on.
They are a wonderful way to kind of really work on the things you're struggling with, but also expand on things that aren't necessarily so core to your course, but still really interesting to you.
So I think that's a really good question. It's one that we get asked a lot because they, I think, can feel very mysterious when you haven't been in one before. But I suppose at its heart, the tutorial is there to think about how to help students with the work that they've been thinking about and dealing with that week. So they'll have done reading, they'll have had an essay, hopefully they'll come with questions. So the first part is usually answering specific questions that the students have had as part of their week's work. But then it's moving on from that to really develop their ideas and their critical analysis, both alongside the tutor and with their tutorial partner. So it's really to start to get them to stretch and develop their ideas sort of in that kind of tutorial environment.
Very much an experience whereby students will receive individual support and advice and guidance from leading experts in their field.
So I think a great application to study at Merton really involves a demonstration of your potential to flourish at the subject and a demonstration of your enthusiasm for it. So what every application is considered in individual detail. It's not a box ticking exercise where we look to see have they done A, B, C, D. what we look at is the opportunities that the applicants have had in their life so far, and what they've done with those opportunities to demonstrate that they're really excited about the subject that they want to study, and to demonstrate that they have the potential to flourish at it. So that if we offer a place in a particular subject to a student, we know that they'll really make the most of that place, that they'll enjoy it, and that they'll do really well here, and that they'll make the most of the opportunity to study in Oxford.
The thing you have got control over is what you say in a personal statement, and the key thing I think there is to say what you want to say, because you're explaining who you are and why you want to study the subject you want to study, but if you can, try and provide evidence.
So in law, relatively few people have studied law before, so people come from a whole variety of backgrounds, and we don't have a set sort of requirements in terms of the particular subjects that people have studied. In terms of the personal statement, I suppose one of the questions that we're interested in is why people think that law is going to suit them. And there's a whole variety of ways in which people can answer that or think about that. So they could address that in a kind of skills-based way, why the skill sets they have they think will suit them to law, or it may be because they've thought about either what it is to study academic law or what it is to have a career in law and why they think that would suit them. And people might have done some work experience, but that's difficult now and it's certainly not required. So it may be that people have read books about either academic law or what it means to have a career in law, or indeed they've kind of gone online. You can go online now, and Supreme Court hearings are live, and you can watch them on the internet. So there are lots of different ways to really put your toe in the water and see whether you think that's going to suit you, and then tell us why you think it will suit you, because I think that's something that is interesting to us.
My interview personally was not nearly as scary as I was expecting it to be. It was basically just a conversation with the tutors. We sat round a table, they showed me some cool diagrams, some cool pictures, and asked me to explain it. They wanted to hear and see my thought process rather than if I actually already knew the answer. They didn't really seem to care about that. And it was just a really nice 20-minute discussion. I actually found it quite enjoyable.
What I like the most about my interviews is that for history it was completely catered to what I was interested in. So I had one on my personal statement and one on an essay that I'd written. So both of those topics were completely led by me and my interests.
So don't think about interviews in a way that stresses you out about them, but do think about interviews in a sense of this is going to be a conversation. It's going to be quite like being taught history in a or whatever subject it is in a tutorial form of teaching, but also what kinds of things are people looking to have that conversation about with me, and I think that's a useful way to approach it.
When you're in an interview, the tutors want to see how you think, not necessarily that you know the answer. And it's about kind of the method you use to work through a question and knowing when to ask for help, which is not always the easiest thing, but tutors will kind of help you along that way.
To kind of shift the mindset that you have to be like some sort of genius to apply to Oxford, because a lot of people apply just thinking they'll just give it a shot and see how it happens, and then they just end up here out of chance, and that could be you if you genuinely enjoy your subject, which if you're considering, you probably do. So it is worth a shot because it's like an educational experience that's like once in a lifetime, and not really like anywhere else in the world.
Merton tutors and Oxford tutors are not looking for people who are the finished product, otherwise why would you need to go to Oxford? They're looking for people who show willingness and passion for learning, and they want to be able to help you get to where you need to be.
So to prepare for interviews, one of the best things you can do is just get used to talking about your subject. So one of the things I tried to do is, if I was writing an essay plan for my history course, just actually like read it aloud and like think things out loud before I wrote them down, because you just get used to thinking through the kind of questions that you might get asked in an interview.
Well, I suppose one of the things to think about is, in law, as in many other subjects, you do have an admissions test. And one of the things that is probably very sensible is to look online. There are examples of previous tests. that you can do at home and you can have a go at, and it will at least give you a sense of the format and the structure of the tests and the sorts of things that you might be asked.
I think my tip for applications is to do your research. So make sure that you understand what the course is that we're offering, make sure it's the right course and university for you, and then make sure you're familiar with all of the different components of an application and their timing, so that nothing takes you by surprise, and so that if you need to, you've got plenty of time to ask questions.
The best thing about being a student at Merton is the incredibly lovely community, full of creative, interesting and encouraging people.
I would say the best thing about being a student at Merton is just you're surrounded by so many beautiful buildings. It's really inspiring atmosphere, and it's one of the most amazing places you can study.
Merton is a brilliant college to apply to because it's got a wonderful community spirit. Everyone is so supportive. Everyone from the general college staff, the porters and cleaners, etc., to your fellow students and the academic tutors, who always want to kind of help you to make sure that you do the best for yourself.